Okay, so we're now going to talk about a hand and the biomechanics of a hand, but I don't have a hand apart from this hand. So we're going to be talking about my hand here and how it relates, and there is a reason why my sleeve is rolled up, but we're going to use it in the context of the foot. Okay, so the first thing we'll say is that a foot and a hand fundamentally are virtually exactly the same, structurally, biomechanically, etc. You have 5 toes, you have 5 fingers. The difference with toes is that although you have these sets of bones running together to make toes, on feet they're webbed, because it kind of makes it easier to walk on than if they were all splayed out like a duck. But on a hand, they are splayed out. Okay, and then on the hand, you've then got these long bones that are buried inside this section here, and then you have ball bearings, I think it's 8 off the top of my head, but basically here you have a set of ball bearings that then allow your hand to rotate against the main lower arm bone, the radius, and then we have the ulna here, the same as down in the leg. We have a main bone and a supplementary bone. Okay, so what we've got here is here is the radius, which is your main elbow joint as far as you're concerned. But then at the side you have this ulna, which, as we've talked about before with the leg, they need to be free to rotate against each other. So you can see here they're rotating. But what people don't realise with hands is that the functioning of a hand is controlled up here for the most part. It doesn't mean you haven't got muscles in your hand, but it's really important to realise that if I now do this motion with my fingers, the traction and the power, and we can see it working down here, is the cables are being pulled from down here. So the cables from here pull my hand in. The cables from here pull my hand out. And if we look at the top of my hand, you can see the tendons here, each one individually. This one gives way to allow this one to tighten. And this one has to give way for this one to tighten, at its most simplistic. And we get a lot of people who are on the mouse, gripped long term like that. If you're lying in bed and you realise your hand is like that, or worse still like that, all the time, it means you're too tight on this area, and this area is solidifying. It can actually calcify. The body just goes, oh well, she never uses here to open a hand, so we'll just be economical and efficient and just block that area of movement out, which is another reason why we should keep moving. So your hands need to keep moving, and often people have got arthritis, which we've talked about before. Remember, arth means joint, itis means inflammation. If this tendon here, for instance, pulling here, and this one here both end up pulling down, what they're effectively doing is on these bones here, it's cramming them all together. And then when you try and move them, they're going to inflame. They're going to try and make themselves better. They're going to think, right, we need to send in the army, we need to send in a better blood supply and everything, but it's not going to work. And all that happens is you end up with inflammation in there. And that then can become, it can be called gout, or it can be called some other form of arthritis or whatever. But a lot of the time, if we can just get everything moving properly, and we've talked, and again, look at a separate video about feet, we look at making sure everything is correctly aligned in your foot. Then you've got the same thing in your hand. Make sure everything's correctly aligned. Use things. People arrive here with great heat and inflammation in this area. And a small amount of soft tissue work can start to release and improve the circulation of the fluid in this area. And as the area becomes less engorged in terms of swelling, then you get the movement back. Imagine in this toe, if this was a finger, but everything around it has been flooded with great, really filled up. The tank has been filled up with fluid and a great big tight band around the outside of it. It's not surprising if it can't move. But if we can ease the tissue around the edges, we can re-establish fluid flow, then the great big engorged area can go down, and then you can start to get movement. And with movement becomes more movement. So as I move my fingers, and my brain's getting told it doesn't hurt, it lets me carry on moving. And the more I move, the better my lymphatic system, my bloodstream, and my supply of good things in and waste products away.